Hey, it's Patrick Lovell, Truth Bomb riffing on Thursday, June 8th, 2023 at 10:24 a.m. my time. And this is sort of a different sort of angle to try to kind of pick up on the momentum and a lot of interest that seems to be happening in a lot of different ways, but not enough and not fast enough and not strong enough to deal with what we're all under the thumb of. And, it was interesting this morning. I just posted on Twitter an article by Pam Martins and Russ Martins of Wall Street on Parade, who I, you know, read religiously, and are one of the few who actually get it right in media to reveal the insane corruption that's happening at the financial level. But she took a different track today, and it was off the heels of something that I was kind of staring mesmerized at yesterday with pictures that kind of, I don't know, imbue, portray, provide some sort of visual sort of epiphany of what we're in the midst of. And because of these wildfires in Canada, there's this blanket of smog and smoke blanketing the northeast seaboard that made it look like it's post-apocalyptic, kind of like what we looked at on the day after on 9/11. And her article said briefly, like, look, I mean, here are these environmental scenarios, and yet what is underneath everything is this incredible monopoly and corruption of elected officials by the fossil fuel industry, and then immersed with finance and everything that configures. If you follow Pam or myself, and you understand that, yeah, we're being choked to death, literally. And then, of course, this is off the heels of the information of Saudi and the Live Golf Tournament and all things 9/11 families that is picking up some, I should say, at least perspective by some of the outlets out there. But I just got off the phone yesterday with one of the point people who's kind of the main organizer of the 9/11 families, because I've been working with these guys. And it's just, I went on this massive, truth bomb riff last summer where I just went absolutely apeshit on Phil Mickelson for joining the Live Tour, because I was absolutely disgusted, because he and I went to Arizona State at the same time. We actually attended a few parties together. I was always a big fan, but he got into all sorts of gambling problems, and he needed to go on the Live Tour to basically supplement his income. And Saudi Arabia, of course, however you carve it up, doesn't matter. Their fingers are all over 9/11. Now, there's a lot more to it than just Saudi, and it's totally deep, but I've known forever that Saudi's involvement with 9/11 was a massive cover-up. Just like the JFK assassination and whether or not the CIA actually murdered JFK, it's like 9/11. If you start to open up that Pandora's box, you go deep, because it configures everything that we're in the midst of. And yeah, no, we don't have any answers for 9/11. And mainstream media played along with it for 20 years. And they also played along with 2008 and whoever knows what since. But we are in a massive cyclone of misinformation and chaos. And as I always say, corruption births and fuels fascism. So last week I recorded what I think was my, what is it called? The magnum opus, if you will, of my truth bombs, which is called, what is the title of it? It's Now or Never. And I recorded on Saturday, June 3rd, so less than a week ago. And I said everything that I need to say in there. And I want that to go far and wide, and hopefully it catches steam and trends and breaks through this incredible Teflon, or this barrier between all of the people out there absorbing all of the misinformation. And what I've got the truth. I understand exactly how the system of power, that its modus operandi evolves and emanates from finance and Wall Street, and what that means behind the scenes. And there's another aspect of it, of course, that's dark money and corruption and CIA and all things, manner and form of the kinds of things like Jeffrey Epstein and involvement at the highest levels. I mean, all of that stuff is baked in, but the information I'm providing you is the clarity and the evidence of everything that we put in our incredible work that is going to be etch-a-sketched from history. And that's the way the system wants it. And I said on my before, just quickly, it's kind of like Roger Waters and The Wall. I mean, there's The Wall and the production of the rock opera and everything that it's supposed to, project, and then the misinformation and the distortion and the tweaks of people misreading it for their own their own political agenda. Quite frankly, The Wall is anti-fascism. Period. That's it. Full stop. Any criticism for Israel that comes from that point downstream is a bigger topic of conversation. But it's not because Roger Waters is an anti-Semite or a part of some neo-fascist movement by any stretch of the imagination, which is utterly ridiculous, which is part and parcel to like almost everything that you could talk about all day, every day, about everything that's coming out and all of these different pockets, all these different vectors of people trying to get their foothold. And it's like everybody else is the problem of corruption. And you saw, I think yesterday, Tucker Carlson had 80 million views on his stupid 10-minute twit rant, which was actually interesting in two regards. Yeah, there is some interesting stuff behind the scenario with UFOs. Yeah, for sure. I've actually witnessed myself some oddities years and years ago that I always kind of configured later were potentially drones and whatever that means. But yeah, trust me, I've followed all the stuff from Captain Fravor and everything else. But that's again besides the point. There's a lot of discussion right now in certain places about even more cover-ups. Okay, yeah, maybe that's possible. Who knows? I mean, it certainly seems plausible to me. But that's not my MO. That's almost like my, what is it called when you have like a just something like on a Friday night, like, late night, if you're having a couple of cocktails, you might want to like, check out all the stuff on that subject, which is kind of fun, right? And, because it definitely makes your mind work. But anyway, that has nothing to do with the enormity of the cover up, although it kind of does. And that's my point, but the corruption that I'm revealing to you. And so, look, we've got to get up and running. And where I stand is I'm the ultra enemy of fascism and corruption. Because I say corruption births fascism. I know exactly how it works. I've got all of the answers. And I know that sounds arrogant, but it's true. You would understand, if you understand what I've been through for the course of the last 13 years, that cost over $4.5 million to achieve what we did, that ultimately got covered up by the system that can cover everything up. That's the situation. We're in this like death grip chokehold, death spiral with all of these different issues that we've known about for 30 freaking years, but we have no clarity because the system of power is a bunch of complicitous, duplicitous, diabolical sellouts because everybody follows the money and truth has no value. And that's what we're up against. And I'm trying to create a populist tidal wave crusade to purge corruption. Because if you, me, and everyone you see who isn't a Nazi, who believes in dignity, decency, integrity, liberty, sustainability, if we unite, we can defeat this misery of tyranny and we can usher in what I'm calling the new clean deal. I know how to do this stuff soup to nuts. And I would say in closing that the only way you can actually effectively organize is, money, okay? Money is ultimately the ultimate tool of organization. Don't believe me? Look around. Everybody on Twitter that's a tool in the full circus, but also extensions of this right-wing, very coordinated fascist movement and everything it does in an echo chamber-like scenario, and they're all getting their funding from somewhere. And that funding is probably the same funding that is corrupting the Supreme Court and all of the judiciary around the country. What I've said forever is corruption births and fuels fascism. If you believe in democracy, if you believe in the integrity of law, if you believe in the dynamism of and the strength of character, and anything can happen, and you have possibility, and you're somebody who knows that great achievements come at great sacrifice, and all of those things that pretty much define. It's interestingly, divine intervention in terms of some of the great achievements the American experiment has been able to achieve throughout its existence, from the Revolutionary War to the victory over the Confederates with the Civil War to the victory over fascism and the Civil Rights Movement. I'm on the side of liberty and justice for all, and I make no bones or apologies about it. And I'm not Martin Luther King, even though I think he is definitely a prophet, and I wish I could be, but I'm not that guy. I'm a fighter, and I'm a guy that knows what we're in the midst of. And let me tell you, if you let fascism get crazy, as we saw in pictures yesterday, that there was like this interaction and confrontation between, MAGAs, white supremacists, and I guess I've seen a bunch of different headlines on it and a bunch of different spins, but attacking what looked like LGBTQ slash, whatever group that may have been, and it was a fist fight. If you don't know history, those fist fights were taking place all over Germany between fascists and communists before Hitler got power. And what they ended up doing was murdering everybody. That was the whole machine of Nazism. The clampdown. Fascism is murder. That's what it is. And it's punch down and punch sideways instead of, lift up, a rising tide lifts all boats, which is the whole purpose of the Statue of Liberty. Send me your, downtrodden, and you have an opportunity to, build a new life and engineer, the American dream, which has been murdered by the corruption. And so, what I'm asking you in the framing in honor of the original 13 colonies that fought, I guess, a gazillion to one odds to triumph over what was then the largest empire on earth. What they did was absolutely miraculous, but they definitely had home turf and they were able to last out longer and they were committed, meaning the Patriots and the 13 original colonies. So in that vein, that gave us the Bill of Rights, that gave us the Constitution, that gave us separation of powers, and that gave us the ideal of democracy and liberty and justice for all. That's what I'm fighting for. The question is, why aren't you fighting for that? Are you expecting some presidential candidate to put it all together? Let me tell you, I've watched everything from Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I like a lot of stuff that he says, but he doesn't know how to put the whole pieces of the puzzle together in his self-proclamation of bringing truth to the American people, at least not yet. Hopefully that'll change soon. But the corruption of the financial system, nobody's even coming close to. Not Dr. Cornel West. He's a genius, but he talks about systemic corruption all the time, but he doesn't know the details. Unfortunately, same with Marianne Williamson. It's not their expertise. It's my expertise. What I'm doing is I'm putting together this movement. You might think of it as a presidential campaign, but it's a populist movement to purge corruption with the information I have that's lock, stock, and barrel. I did the work that the $90 billion a year budgeted enterprise of the DOJ, the FBI, the SEC, and AGs around the country and so forth didn't get the job done. We got the job done for $4.5 million to get the $29 trillion truth. If you want more details on that, go to I guess it's all on the line now. I can't remember what I called it. I just mentioned it at the outset of this thing. It's on Patrick Level Truth. It's Now or Never. Truth Bombs the Con. That's my magnum opus. I said everything I needed to say in there, but I have got to raise funds. The idea is we're going to do a podcast to where I bring you all of the voices that can give you all of the truths that the entire system, most notably all of the manipulators for an outcome, whether it's Tucker Carlson, whether it's Russell Brand. I don't put Joe Rogan in that sort of scenario. Joe Rogan does his own thing. I really do think Joe Rogan's independent, to be honest with you. He has his ideas and everything, but at the same time, he's not going for clickbait. I think he's too big for that, quite frankly. Maybe he would if he was in that situation, but we're in 2023. It's not 2014. Okay, so he's already created his audience, and he gets more eyeballs on his podcast than I think the entirety of mainstream media and the echo chambers. And if you think about the budgets of CNN and Fox and MSNBC combined are astronomical compared to a podcast that Joe Rogan just can get high, have a couple of drinks, and talk to people. And that's what he's been doing. I don't think he has a motive, or at least one that I would consider necessarily. I'm at a loss for the correct word, but I don't think he's manipulating people like the other ones are. Okay, Jimmy Dore is clickbait for MAGA. Even though he's this anti-war guy. I mean, it's just everybody found their lane, and everybody finds a way to pick and choose in their way. And they're not investigative journalists. I am. Look, $13 from 1,300 of you would give us enough to get on first base. I've been trying to do this for 6 weeks. We've raised $2,500 ish. I think we've got to, find 1,250 of you out there to get to our initial goal. I got to do all of the right stuff by getting a 501c3 or C4. I got to be able to pay, for the podcast and everything else. But my ambition is much larger than that. I want to become a vector. I want to grow this. I need to get people on board who understand algorithms that can actually get us to the next level. So this new medium can undercut all of the freaking lies and deception that are everywhere and then penetrate with the truth over and over and over. But ultimately, I want to create a Lollapalooza, Live Aid-like scenario where we go on this national tour where I bring this information to the American people and everything that it reveals to penetrate in real time so we can bring everybody together who definitely wants to defeat all of these enemies of democracy and integrity and injustice, of the kind of, good, empathetic, kind nature, but yet strong and willing to fight for justice Americana that I grew up with. And I know you're out there. I know that there's tens of millions of you out there, but you haven't connected with me because I'm getting, sabotaged by the system, because I'm not playing the game of the algorithms, because I'm not cherry picking, because I did the work. And it's a nonpartisan scenario, because I think the biggest thing that really screwed us up, but I would never ever change it because I have integrity, is when we did our work in the con, again at www.thecon.tv, which is the $29 trillion truth that's about to be etch-a-sketch from history. But we pulled no punches. We didn't make this about Trump. We didn't make this, about Obama. It was Obama and Clinton and everything before that created the situation that came after. Everybody in power is in on it, most notably the media. And we all know it. And I'm trying to be, quite frankly, a capitalist to exploit their lies in pursuit of truth, because the truth has to have value. Is the truth one way? I mean, I think we all get convoluted based on truth, but you've got to understand when someone kills someone and you can prove it, there's a murder weapon, there's fingerprints, there's causality, there's mens rea, there's intent, there's opportunity, and can't remember off the top of my head what the third and the fourth elements are. I probably just covered them. But the bottom line is, yes, if you do the forensics investigation, we all know CSI. We know how this works. You can prove it. That's what I did. But the entirety of Wall Street, to the tune of tens of millions of felonies that buried 50 to 100 million people around the world, 50 million in America, and another 10, 20, 30 million around the world, to create this system where we then gave tens of trillions of dollars, $29 trillion specifically in 2009, illegally, to the full faith and credit of the United States to back up what I call the mafiocracy. The whole thing is that we live in a corporate fascist state undergirded by a criminal syndicate that uses socialism to fuel the mafiocracy that is now fueling fascism. Is that too complex for you to understand? It's not complex at all. Just follow the money, follow the intent. See how everybody is complicitous. I mean, I learned a long time ago that there's two columns of our soul. You either have character and integrity, or you have hypocrisy, duplicity, and complicity. I've got character and integrity, and I want to destroy corruption. And I want tens of millions of you to join me. Imagine those World War II posters. Uncle Sam, I want you. That's who I am. I want you, because I know there's more good than bad. It's just that the evil are more sophisticated, more relentless, more diabolical, and quite frankly, more committed. Because, good people just want to raise healthy family lives and live on their own and not be bothered and just try to get through the system and do what, hopefully, gives them a useful, reasonable life that then one day they can see their creator and all their loved ones in the afterlife is kind of the concept, right? Do you believe in that? I don't know. Let me tell you what I believe in. I believe in liberty and justice for all, and that you got to fight for justice. You've got to fight for what you believe in. You can't sit on the sidelines. You can't pretend somebody else is going to save you. Nobody else will or can, because they didn't do the work I did. What is the work? Well, it's going to disappear, but I've got 330 videos on YouTube. I've got probably hundreds and not thousands of hours. I did the con at www.thecon.tv, and I've got a podcast that's on, you can find it online with the Real Progressives, called The New Untouchables. Check out my last truth bomb if you need to know more information that says the time is now. And it is. But if I can find you guys to reach in your pocket, I know an Amazon or Netflix or HBO subscription is more than $13. I'm asking for a one-time contribution of $13. If I can get 13 million of you, and that's a small percentage of what actually went through the 2008 great financial crisis, and everybody else who's in misery now, if I can get somewhere in the vicinity of 13 million people to contribute $13, you're investing in the redemption of the American dream by destroying the murder weapon of corruption that murdered the American dream. That's what this is all about. Redemption, resurrection, and exodus from corruption to create the resurrection of the American dream. Sorry to use biblical references, but they make sense. That's what we're in the midst of, because this is biblical. Because look at the sky over Manhattan. Now, is that bad air going to choke out the corruption, or is it going to obfuscate more corruption? The choice is yours. Join me today. Failure is not an option. Rise, roar, revolt, onwards and upwards.